I can stand in Times Square in New York City sometimes and just walk just like everybody else and not have anybody take notice, and just think I'm a regular guy. But if I stop for a second and say, okay, watch this, and I point my thumbs and say, Rob Van Dam. Then you see all the pictures going off. Everyone's running over there for an autograph and stuff. It's crazy. I didn't think this was that original, just pointing to the man who's giving you the show, but apparently that stands for RVD, everyone's favorite wrestler. Jeez, I had already been wrestling professionally for probably a good 4 or 5 years, I'm sure, before I ever heard the term backyard wrestling. And it was around, it always has been, but it wasn't what it is today. Now there's a picture that comes to mind when people hear backyard wrestling. You think of kids that are just brutalizing their bodies and beating the hell out of themselves in their backyard at any expense. And really, I mean, when I was a kid, I would do similar things on a different level because I would watch pro wrestling and I would imitate the moves that I like to see, my favorite wrestlers, whatever. Nowadays, the pro wrestling is a much different product. It's extreme, it's hardcore. There's still the wrestling aspect of it, but it seems like a lot of the kids that wrestle in the backyard forget about the wrestling part and they just take out the hardcore and extreme moves and just imitate that. That's not a match. That's just beating the hell out of each other, and that's what they're doing now. We would actually be in the backyard, and we would slam each other. We'd maybe pretend we're hitting the ropes or something like that. But nowadays, I see footage of kids jumping off the roof with a light bulb in their hand, smashing it over their friend's head, power bombing them, pile driving them on the grass or on a wooden pallet, like that's really going to protect them, lighting themselves on fire. So it's crazy, and it's been more and more growing in the last couple of years. I mean, you see backyard wrestlers on talk shows or having their own videos, which they send me a lot, and now you can even buy videos out of the wrestling magazines of the backyard wrestling because it's such a phenomenon. I actually used to wrestle in front of people, in crowds, before I was professional. And the thing that made me not professional isn't just because I wasn't getting paid. Because I thought, you know, if the promoter slipped me $5, hey, I'm a pro, I'm getting paid for doing what I like to do. But the truth is, these shows that I used to do that at were kickboxing shows. I was involved in kickboxing before I ever made it into the pro circuits of wrestling. Throughout a teenager, I took several martial arts I would recommend to any kid interested in getting into wrestling. Any athletic activity you've had prior to pro wrestling will help you out. You know, whether it's martial arts or even if you were just a football player, if you were a bodybuilder, whatever, it's going to help because there's a lot of people that try and get in to pro wrestling that really aren't athletes at all. They're just big fans, and it really increases the odds against them, which are bad enough already. Unless your daddy is a pro wrestler and you're second generation, you have to go to a school. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I'm sure that there's probably some that manage to slip through the cracks because they get a promoter that's interested in them that'll help them out, you know, but eventually they're going to have to school themselves anyway. Back when I did the shows, I would open the kickboxing shows doing choreographed wrestling matches, me and my buddies. We would set it up, we would go through everything. And we were acrobatic, we thought we were entertaining. I'd love to see those videotapes right now, and they're floating around somewhere, I'm sure. But until I was schooled professionally, I had no idea what I was doing. I just thought that I did. I met the original Sheik in 1989. That's where I started my schooling, in Lansing, Michigan. And geez, after one workout, with a professional, I found out everything I was doing was wrong. All I was a kid just imitating what I was watching on TV, which, you know, there was no reason to feel bad about myself. I mean, I still respected what I did. I still had the positive energy to tell people, yeah, I'm doing this and doing that, and it's a lot of fun. But the truth is, unless you have a professional take you through the courses, just like a college for any other career, whether you're going to beauty school or whatever, you pay a tuition. You go through all the classes, the courses, and then, if you're lucky, then you qualify. The odds are still against you being successful because there's so many millions and millions of people wanting to be pro wrestlers, but I'm not going to say you can't do it. After all, I had nothing going for me when I got in. I was probably 13 or 14 years old when I went to my first live match. It was a WWF event at the Kellogg Center in Battle Creek. I think it was 1984, which would have made me 13 years old. I went to my first live event and somebody plugged the idea into my head. Is this helicopter going to mess us up? I'm a wrestler. And that was the first time that the idea ever entered my head. I was like, me? I mean, I'm just some kid from Battle Creek, Michigan. I mean, I wasn't even big. I graduated high school maybe 170 pounds, and back when I was 13 or 14, I'm sure I had nobody else looking at me saying, sure, you can do it, but one person did, and that was all it took for me to believe in myself. So for the next several years, I learned everything I could about pro wrestling. I learned about all the schools. I learned about the schedule, about the training that they do. I did all the research that I could, and at the same time, I got involved in martial arts. There was one point when I was 19 years old, I was training to be a pro wrestler. I was kickboxing. I took second place in a local tough man contest, and I thought at that point maybe I would go with the kickboxing. I was at a crossroads where I seemed to have a couple of different options, and I liked pro wrestling better. I liked what it had to offer me. It was more entertaining. It allowed me to be more creative, to fit in some of my acrobatic skills that I got from playing on a diving board, and I found my niche, and it's been a good run for me. I see kids. They're doing interviews and they look like they're 15 years old and they're already talking about my elbow's too messed up, I can't take a hard shot to the head anymore, I get concussions, my leg was broke, this and that. And they keep going, and they're going to be too falling apart by the time they're old enough, because once you're old enough and you're 18, if you do get in at 18 and you start your pro wrestling career, you still have a long time ahead of you to take those lumps and get hurt. And if you start out without as much as the other guys have just going in, again, another huge disadvantage. And chances are you show up at a wrestling school, they say, okay, let me see if you have what it takes to be a wrestler. You take one slam and you can't get up, you're not going to impress anybody. The children should have supervision by their parents if they're imitating anything that they see on TV, and that I feel strongly about. Anything on television is just that. It's something that's on television. If some kids were to imitate Rob Van Dam and start, kicking each other, doing spin kicks and flying kicks, well then, okay, maybe they're having fun. Hopefully nobody gets hurt. That's the same thing that I did when I would watch martial arts movies, Kung Fu theater when I was a kid. I'd run up the trees and do backflips and everything just from being excited about what I saw on TV. I mean, that's just part of life. If I watched Arnold Schwarzenegger, however, with a gun, blow up an army of bad guys, that doesn't make me feel like going out and getting a gun and shooting people. Then it becomes a judgment call, and that really requires the parents' influence, to put that good judgment in their kid and raise them to be able to make good decisions. But as far as adult support, forget it. My mom and dad, they were behind me enough to say, if you really want to do this, go about it smart, do a lot of research, have something to fall back on. But my teachers, they wanted nothing to do with it. They thought I was crazy. No professional wrestler ever came from Battle Creek, Michigan, especially not Penfield High School. And they would tell me, Mrs. Rosa, my speech teacher, you will not be a wrestler. You will do this homework. Well, of course I had to do the work. And now, many years later, now that I've been all around the world, I see so many reasons that I should have paid more attention in school. In geography, for one, because I travel all around from state to state, and I can't even point them out sometimes on a map, algebra, everything. I mean, you still got to pay bills, write checks, all that. Everything that the real adult needs in the real world, the wrestlers need to have that education too. But really, you got to believe in yourself. And I wouldn't advise anybody, hey, believe that you can be a pro wrestler. But I will say that if you have a dream, you should follow it and not let anybody else steer you away from it. Listen to what everybody has to say. Use that input, to help make up your own mind. But as far as just listening to negative influence, who needs it? Negativity is something that I can do without. And for all the teachers and all the adults that said, yeah, right, you're going to be a pro wrestler. Well, those are the ones that I'm not emailing back when they write me on my website to say, Rob, you're great. I saw you on TV last week. Yeah, well, maybe if they write a few more times, they'll get an autograph.